Welcome back, everybody. This is Todd Sylvester once again with the Todd Sylvester Inspires Belief Cast. I am excited once again to have Zack Prior on the Belief Cast today. This is the first time meeting, actually, and he was referred to by another guest that I had on earlier, and Zack's got quite the story, so I'm excited for our listeners to hear it. I do want to first thank, again, our sponsor, Veracity Networks, and my friend Drew Peterson for making that possible. It's truly helped us get the word out and to the masses. And so, Zack, thank you for joining me today. Yeah,
thanks for having me on. This is pretty exciting and pretty interesting experience so far.
Yeah, good. Well, you have an amazing story, and you sent me your bio, and I'm going to read just a little bit from that, and just kind of, as a young kid, you were labeled a troubled youth, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
You struggled with anger issues. Was there addiction involved in that too? Drug use and all that?
A lot of partying, recreational drug use, drinking, that sort of thing.
And you got arrested at age 14?
Yep, that was the first time I got arrested.
Yeah, for assault, if I remember right. Is
yeah.
That? Okay.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you had a rough upbringing, and it's amazing though, listeners, what he's done with his life now. He's a bodybuilder. He is currently an NPC amateur bodybuilder, and he's aspiring to get his IFBB pro card, which is similar to like if you were playing in the NFL or Major League Baseball or the NBA, correct?
Yeah, it's on that in the bodybuilding world. That's the pinnacle of where you can be at.
Right. And you didn't grow up lifting weights or anything like that.
No.
It was just you kind of found your purpose in this. And I've heard this from other people who have had a rough upbringing, and they find the gym, and they find a purpose to move forward. And yours is not just going to the gym. It's more, this bodybuilding like we were talking about here, which is pretty amazing.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely, I was always a skinny kid, growing up just all through my youth into my younger adult years. And so working out was never really a thing. I never was into any school sports or anything like that.
Right.
Nothing active whatsoever until just like 5 or 6 years ago. I think just coming up on 5 years that I literally started going to the gym.
Right.
And before that, like I said, it was the complete opposite, just completely self-destructive.
Right.
What I was doing to my body was terrible.
Exact opposite,
Yeah, and so...
well, let's get into that, because I want our listeners to know where you came from.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about a little bit about your family and, you growing up a little bit, and then let's talk about when you started getting into trouble and things like that.
Yeah, so when I was younger, my parents didn't really... They had their own sort of drug issues and personal issues of theirs going on. So we didn't have, a stable, between me and my brothers and sisters, didn't have a stable environment growing up. Bounced around from living place to place. All within the state of Utah, but always moving around a million times. And
did you know as a young child that your parents were struggling with substance abuse?
No, at a young age, I don't think I really even knew what that sort of world was. So like a lot of stuff I just figured was just kind of normal, that it was to bounce around from school to school, being all over the place, and not really, having any sort of stability. So it didn't really, I think, although it didn't really, I didn't consciously think about it, I think subconsciously it created a lot of these sort of issues that would later manifest into...
Yeah, and you kind of knew something was off, obviously, but you couldn't pinpoint it.
Yeah, and I think, without knowing something, what is going on, but you have a sense of that something isn't right, just human nature.
Sure.
And so... bounced around between mom and dad, and then moving around all sorts of places, and then eventually my half brother and half sister, they went to go live with their dad. We had same mom, different dads. They lived with their dad, and me and my younger sister went to go live with our grandparents.
Okay.
Just during a time that my mom and dad couldn't take care of us, didn't have the means to. That was around, I think, fourth grade or so.
Okay.
Fourth, fifth grade.
So parents divorced.
Yeah, my parents got divorced. I had to be like 2 or 3, so I was still pretty young.
So young enough.
Where
do you fall in line? Are you the youngest, oldest, in the
I'm
middle?
I'm the second youngest.
Okay.
So I have a younger sister and then an older half sister and then an older half brother.
Okay.
And so after moving with my grandparents, looking back in retrospect,
yeah,
I think I was already had these sort of issues going on that I had no idea about, and I think my grandparents had to deal with this sort of messed up sort of kid, and they didn't know they had a hard time dealing with it because their grandparents are older, they're and they're trying to do everything they can. I didn't really think, like I said at the time,
right.
I think I was just kind of just acting out in certain ways, and so they put me with a psychologist and psychiatrist, and then I got on certain medications and stuff like that and I was given diagnosis for ADD, anxiety, depression. So I was taking all at 11, 12, 13 years old, taking, which I don't really think is the best thing for kids to be taking when their brain isn't reached full development. Yeah. But trying to do whatever we can to, get me sort of normalized as much as possible. But I just acted out in school. I did very poorly in school.
Yeah.
And so I think, just by the time I was 14, my parents kind of got their shit together and whatever, went back, lived with my mom, and then just started doing stupid stuff, get in trouble with the law. First time, 14.
So your mom's at this point, you're back with your mom at age 14?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So in between, about 4 or 5 years lived with my grandparents, maybe even more than that. And then about age 14, back to live with my mom. And then just started acting out and got in trouble at my first time at 14, assault charged, and then got sent to detention facility for a period of time. And then from there, got put into an alternative junior high school,
right,
for the troubled youth. But the problem with that, I think, was you're now put in an environment with other troubled youth, and whereas before you might be around a little bit better influences, but now it's everybody's clumped together that have all been in trouble with the law, or have some sort of similar upbringing where things were completely unstable. So that just put me in an environment where then I started, using all sorts of drugs, smoking weed, doing coke, at this point I've tried basically every type of drug under the sun multiple times. Yeah. Drank a lot, just partied a lot, and that just led to, getting in trouble and arrested more times.
So it sounds like, we had talked about this before even, you had some anger issues growing up. Mm-hmm. And we know, in my field that anger is a secondary emotion. And what comes before anger is fear and hurt. Mm-hmm. And so, based on what you've gone through, even with your own family, you probably had a lot of hurt. And what we do as human beings is we act out in anger, so we don't feel the hurt. We don't feel that. So here you are, like you keep saying it, I keep acting out, which tells me, growing up, you had a lot of hurt going on.
Yeah.
Is that fair?
Yeah, I think that's fair. And it's hard for me to say I felt this way, but if I was on the outside looking in, if I was looking at somebody else acting in the ways that I did, I think it was more attention seeking, maybe that you didn't get as a child or something. That sort of general thing.
Sure.
But also I think just general, just anger, just being mad at maybe the situation, or, or, could be fear,
Sure.
It's hard to say,
Yeah.
at that point in time, but it makes sense.
Yeah.
But it was always doing stuff, just completely impulsive, not
Yeah.
thinking about the consequences. I've always was always fairly intelligent kid, which, everybody that was around me was like, "You're always so smart. Why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? You're such an intelligent kid.
Yeah.
You're like, you're wasting this potential on just doing stupid stuff and getting in trouble and hanging out with people that are, aren't going to be positive influences, as
Right.
well as I'm a very, could be a negative influence on them. I think just kind
Right,
of feeding
for
off
sure,
of each
yeah.
other. Which was always funny because my mom was always wanting to blame, like, "Oh, your friends are such bad influences. Your friends are like, well, I mean, yeah, but I'm not the best influence
Right,
either.
I'm not helping out in that
Yeah,
area.
it's. I think you kind of, in that environment, you're feeding off of each other.
Yeah,
Um,
for sure.
and so that just, led me to go in and out of detention centers, and then, spending time in, like, Mill Creek Juvenile Detention Center. So I spent, clumped together, years of my life
Yeah.
just sitting in a cell as like a teenager, as well as, I went to, county jail after I turned 18 a few times, which was even just completely different experience,
Right.
and so with all of that, I had family members that were like, if you keep on doing this, you're going to end up going to prison at some point in time, and so I think just naturally as I got older, started calming down a little bit, and then just decided one day, me and my friend Josh, we were working together, we just were like, hey, let's just start going to the gym. I was
And
like,
how old were you at this time?
so this was 5 years ago, so I was 24.
24. And so up until this point, you
Mhm.
had been in and out of jail. You've been arrested a few times.
Yeah.
You're still, I would imagine, are you still doing drugs and drinking and partying?
Oh yeah. Oh
hard?
yeah. Yeah, from the age 14 all the way to about 24, just
So
really
you're
heavy.
okay. And here's what so at 24, your friend says, "Hey, let's go hit the gym."
Mhm.
Just kind of like a random thing. Let's just go.
Yeah.
But you're still doing all of this behavior up to that moment. Is that correct?
Yeah, I had
Okay.
calmed down quite a bit after
Okay.
about the age of like around 21, 22.
Okay.
I think I had matured quite a bit. But I was still like, doing things that could have gotten me arrested or in trouble,
Right.
and still, doing a lot of drugs and drinking and partying a lot, which is still bad, but it was much, much different from when I was, in my teenage to earlier years.
Right.
And then, yeah, it was completely random. It wasn't anything like I had planned for this. If you would have told me 6 years ago that I'd be competing,
Right.
stepping on stage in like a Speedo and, massive amounts of spray tan, I would have said, you're absolutely insane. There's no way. And here I am after my fifth and sixth competitions.
Right.
So, yeah, we were just like, okay, let's start going to the gym and start lifting weights. Just, might be cool to do, whatever, get big muscles, whatever, sort of guyish,
Right.
sort of thing. And then, I just enjoyed doing it. After, a few weeks, he's like, we were going in the morning right before we went to work, and he was like, man, I don't want to wake up early and do this today. And I'm like, okay. So I just started going on my own, and it just kind of took off from there.
Took off. Yeah.
And I think it came from like my addictive personality and these sort of things that, led to all this self-destructive behavior when I was a teenager.
Yeah.
Well, now I had sort of a better outlet for all that negative, all that energy that I was putting out, in all these negative ways. Well, now I was able to, take out my aggression and everything going on, and be able to discipline myself to do something and be goal oriented. So I just became obsessed with it from very early on.
Right.
You know, and that was kind of how that took off.
When did you know, like, I mean, did you just know, like, hey, this is what I've been missing in my life? Like, when did you know that? Like, this was going to be something that's going to actually take me to doing something completely different and get me out of this world I've been living in that's been, littered with alcohol and drugs and all that?
I don't think I really had sort of like a moment or like some sort of epiphany. I think it was just over time, maybe after about a year of doing it, and people started, after just a year of lifting, and people in the gym were like, oh, well, do you compete or anything? And I was like, no, I at that point I had like no desire to do it. I mean, maybe I had a little bit of a desire, but I didn't feel like, I'm not that guy. I don't, I'm maybe didn't feel good enough, that because I'd only been doing it for such a short period of time where everybody competing, they've been doing it since they were like teenagers and stuff. I'm like, dude, I'm like 24, 25 years old. I can't start doing that. And then after a while, like I said, I just became super, super obsessed with bodybuilding, where it's this whole world that I had never. I mean, I always knew about bodybuilding. You see the bodybuilders on magazines and stuff, but you have no idea of like what's in that community, in that world. And now I like submerge myself into it. I'm like, there's so much to it, and I think just the extremeness is kind of what draws me to it. I'm a very like black or white type of guy, like 100% or nothing. Like it's very, one way or the other. There's not a lot of gray area. So that's one thing that I liked was, the guys that were really good, they were just like extreme dedication. And like once I learned like how difficult it was and how much it really took to build up these physiques, because, most everyday people will look at somebody that, like a bodybuilder or somebody with good amount of, a lot of muscle and stuff like that. You'd be like, oh, that guy just takes steroids and like he just probably lifts a little bit of weight, but you don't understand what it really goes into it until you're in it.
Until you're doing it.
Until you're doing it to where you see like, oh, this is like literally a 24/7 job on top of everything else you're doing in life. And so once I saw that, I'm like, wow, it's kind of impressive what these guys are able to do. Yeah. And it just took off from there. It intrigued me so much that it's almost still to this day, like bodybuilding to me is like the most absurd sort of sport. It's crazy to me, but I love it, and I can understand.
Well, it's amazing what you've done there, Zach. You sent me a picture that we'll be posting up later on social media. It's just unbelievable how you can tell. I mean, how you look. It absolutely takes that 24/7 dedication. Mm-hmm. So this, I would imagine, Zach, that this helped you like get to that point where like, I'm done with the partying scene per se. I mean, that was the moment I was trying to get at, is like, when did you know, like, okay, I'm done with this old me. This is going to be me from now on.
I mean, probably just within the first few years, once I'm like, within the first few months, I'm like, I like this. Like, this is a lot cooler than I initially thought it was. Right. When I, from the outside looking in, just thinking, just like, oh yeah, just bodybuilders, whatever. But now once I'm seeing what goes into it and all, the different bodybuilders and these different personalities and different things that go into everything, I'm like, it's pretty incredible. Yeah. And so I think that's what, what made me, I'm like, if I'm going to do this, well, I didn't tell myself like I'm going to do this like as hard as possible. It's like I wasn't able to stop myself from doing it that way. Like I said, where I'm just an extremist, I'm like, I if I wanted to slow down, I couldn't. Right. So I think it comes back to sort of my addictive personality, where if I attach to something and I get my mind onto something, I will just like obsess over it, like relentlessly. Yeah. So, which can be very bad, but also very good. I think anyone,
if it's channeled in the right direction.
Yeah. And so luckily I was able to run across this thing that I'm able to utilize, and it's completely changed who I am within the last, 5 years.
Yeah.
To where, I'm still the same guy, but I'm much, much more driven, goal oriented. I'm able to be more disciplined. I've cultivated really strong work ethic and understanding of what it takes to actually, build something, not just physique wise, but literally anything. I mean, that's the nice thing is bodybuilding, the principles of it can be applied to anything in life.
Right.
It's just, it's just a different place to put that.
Sure. Well, growing up, Zach, I mean, obviously you had, some troubles that you were struggling with. What beliefs did you have about yourself back then that were holding you back?
Probably just that, just figured, not good enough to be anything like significant. Probably, I guess I really just didn't think long term enough, and didn't think that, basically that I could accomplish anything. Like, I'm just not that guy to take my life somewhere. I've always, wanted to, and always like, had some sort of desire to, be something or make some sort of difference, but I'm just like, I can't do anything. I've, my whole youth was, like I said, spent in and out of juvenile detention facilities, and all the other times I'm out partying and doing drugs with my friends and stuff, where, so I wasn't able to build up, these things that a lot of people have, that they kind of learned, like the discipline to work and work towards things. And so I think I just had that just limiting self-belief that I'm just like, this is just who I am. Yeah. And hopefully something good happens, which it did.
Right.
Which was, I mean, it was pure luck, that I ran across it, that I ran across bodybuilding. So, I think that, that's the main thing that was limiting.
Well, I think that I've been in this business a long time, counseling people who are struggling, and that is the number one limiting belief that I hear, that I'm just not good enough. Yeah. This is just who I am. It's just what I do. Yeah. This is how I grow up. And it's cool to see you, you no longer are in that mindset. So what would you say your belief system that you have about you now, what would it be?
Well, I mean, it's to where I am now. I mean, it's pretty incredible, because I'm like, where I get, messages and DMs and stuff from a lot of people that are like, hey man, you're an inspiration to me. Like, you really push me, like people I don't even know. And I'm like, really? This is, it blows my mind. And so it's awesome. So it makes me realize, like, I think we have so much more, ability to do, what we want in life, and be able to get the life we have, if we just get past that, the belief, your negative belief system. Sure. We have a lot more power than we initially want to believe. Yeah. And it's very, it's really weird, because like I said, my mindset is completely shifted to where now, before I'm like, I'm not good enough, to now I'm like, I feel like I can do anything. I can do anything, as long as, put in the work behind it. That's for sure. Yeah. That's the thing too, is we're told as kids, like, oh, you can be anything you want to be. Well, that's like half of it, or that's like 10% of it. Sure. The rest of it is like, if you bust your ass, if you really work hard, because guess what? Everybody else wants the good life, and everybody else wants all these, there's going to be 100,000 people behind you that want exactly the same thing you do. And so what makes you think that it's going to fall in your lap for you? You have to, figure out your way to, discipline and work hard towards that. Right. And that's been, probably one of the best things with bodybuilding is I've been able to take myself from this point and then physically see a difference visually, and that's like, it's one thing to like say something or see something on paper, but when you can visually see a significant difference, you're like, oh wow, I can if I do this and this and this and work really hard towards this, then it'll work out. Something will happen.
Yeah, it's motivating to see that change. You look at it and go, whoa, look what I'm doing.
Yeah.
That's motivating.
Yeah, and so I think for me, that was the biggest thing was, just a visual. And that's all I needed to be like, oh, okay. Like A plus B equals C.
Yeah.
It's
very cool.
It's very, it's very simple where, I think we just get caught up in our doubts and things and our fears of, what people think, or like, oh, what if I fail, or what if people laugh at me? And once I was able to just like, what's the alternative? That was my thing. What's the alternative? It's, either give it a shot, and if you fail, it's not the end of the world. You don't die. You're not kicked out of the tribe. You're not exiled. Like, nothing really bad will happen. I mean, somebody could say something bad about you, and I've had plenty of people that, may hate or whatever, but at the end of the day, like, doesn't really change anything, so and the positive that I receive far outweighs any sort of negative.
Sure.
So I think that's kind of like our lizard brain, like our internal, like we have this fight or flight to where, we want to be accepted so bad that it'll create like this, resistance in us to do things that, we know we're capable of, or that we know that we should be doing.
So how does your family now look at you? Are they in awe? Are they shocked?
Yeah. It's so funny because I was the one that always. I mean, my other brother and sister, they got in trouble a little bit, but not even near to the extent that I did. Not even close. And I asked my mom. I knew what her answer was, but I just wanted to hear it. And I was like, who was the worst to deal with? And she was like, oh, you. And I laughed because I knew the answer, but she's like, you know what? You're the one that's like really the one that I'm so proud of. And so, my family, and it's funny because I joke, it's like I set the bar so low. And so now it's like anything that I do is good. Like, it's like, as long as Zach's staying out of jail, like, we're proud. And so now that I'm doing this,
that's
and then
so true, huh?
Yeah, and so it's which is is true. So when I do the bodybuilding competitions, everybody's so proud, and then they go to the competition and they're seeing all these people there, and they're and they see how big of, because my family knows about as much as bodybuilding as I did when I first started. Just basically nothing. And so when they go and they visually see like the competitions, and they see me up on stage, and like, it's a big accomplishment. And so, they're completely happy with it. They can see, where I was and how far I've come now, and, what I'm now building towards. And so they're completely supportive. And it's awesome to see. Yeah,
that's cool.
Because I was the guy that they were like, oh my God, what's going to happen with that?
Yeah, exactly. And based on how you were living your youth, they're probably thinking this guy's going to end up in prison.
Yeah,
because how hard you were going and everything, right?
Oh yeah, and like multiple family members have literally said that to me. They were like, you're going to end up going to prison. I'm like, and so. But at the time, I mean, I'll always remember that.
Yeah.
But at the time, I'm like, oh, whatever.
I'm fine.
Yeah.
I'm good.
You never think it's gonna, that sort of stuff. So,
yeah.
It's just incredible. Now, I would like to go back in time and like be able to interact with myself 7-8 years ago and see what like I was like to interact with. I was thinking about that the other day. I was like, really, what is, like, how vast is this difference? I know my personality is probably very similar, but I'm interested to see, you know, sort of my belief system and like
Sure.
how I would interact with myself. And that's always kind of been
Well, it's
interesting
cool as
thing.
you're talking and sharing your story here. You know, I have this principle that I share with my clients where life happens for us.
Mm-hmm.
And so all of the stuff you've been through, I mean, even though at times it was hard, but it's really benefited you to who you are today.
Yeah, and
Right?
and that's one thing is like I carry, and that was one thing that I remember when I was like younger and getting in trouble. Whenever I was in like DT or sitting in a cell, sleeping on a little thin mattress, whatever,
Right.
all those times, I never blamed anybody else. I like from the time I was
Really?
14, I always took responsibility. I'm like, this is because of what I did.
That's pretty rare, especially for a young kid.
Yeah, and if if you've ever been to jail or if you've ever been in DT or any sort of lockdown facility or anything like that, it's always somebody else's fault.
Right.
It's so, and it always blew my mind how everybody was, wanted to say either they're 100% innocent, I didn't do it, or it was always somebody else's fault. I mean, that was, more than 50% of the people
Sure.
would be like that.
Right.
I would see it even up to 70%. Very few people would be like, you know what, this is because of what I did. And so I was always took responsibility, but I never wanted to change what I was doing.
Right.
It was never significant enough for me to want to change my behavior. And so, yeah, now I'm almost grateful for all, the traumatic experiences and everything that I've had to
Sure.
go through in life, because, it created like a little bit of like craziness and this very dense sort of energy that I can push all into my training and bodybuilding.
Yeah.
To where I can just be, people are like, dude, you're so crazy with it. Like I could never do that. And it's so, this, like I said, this energy is just the fuel
Yeah. Love it.
to just channel it. And so I've had friends, that we grew up partying and doing all this crazy stuff with, and he told me the same thing. He was like, you've always been sort of a crazy, extreme sort of guy, and it was just like this energy that just had no direction. But now he's like, ever since you did bodybuilding, he's like, I can understand why you're such an extremist, because that's your personality, and now you just found an outlet for that.
Right.
And
that's cool.
And so I think that's the thing with a lot of people is we don't have an outlet, or
Right.
we're afraid to do what we want to do, based on our how we believe in ourselves, what we think of other people, or worrying about not doing things 100% right or failing.
Yeah.
But the thing is you're much better trying and doing things and failing than not even trying at all.
Right. That's very well said. Let's talk a little bit about what it takes to be that bodybuilder. I mean, talk about your day.
My day.
What's your routine?
Yeah.
Let's talk about your daily routine.
So daily routine would be, I'll wake up at like 5 a.m., prepare my breakfast, which will be about 8 to 12 egg whites and a whole egg. This is just currently
Right.
It can change.
Changes, yeah.
And then some oats, some dry oats. So I'll have like 80 grams or 2 cups or a full cup of oats. Scoop of peanut butter, and then I have my meals prepared for. I'll get going. I work construction, so
Okay.
I'll have 2 or 3 whole food meals prepped for the day. Put in my lunchbox, and then like some protein powder in a blender bottle. Head off to work at about anywhere between 9 or 10. Once I get a good 5-10 minutes, hurry up and scarf down a meal really quick. Most of the time at that point it'll be cold because I don't have a microwave or anything. So
Right.
I run to the crew truck or something like that, grab a meal, scarf it down, or I'll chug a shake real quick if I have
Yeah.
absolutely no time. And then lunch, you have my lunch. So I'll do that throughout the day. So I'll eat 6 times a day, and get off work after 10, 12 hours, go to the gym, spend about 2 about 2 hours there on average. Intense training,
Right.
and then get off, go home, prepare any meals or anything I need to for the next day. With whatever time I have between then, if I have any time, I'll work on I have my own coaching business where I provide online coaching for people
Cool.
wanting to get in shape, writing training and diet programs. And then I have my Beast Fitness line.
Okay.
That it's like a bodybuilding apparel line that
Cool.
I'm trying to build up and promote. So I'll work on that.
And it's called, what's it called?
Beast Lifestyle, but the S in Beast is actually a Z. So it's like, there we go.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So
Okay, I just want our listeners to hear that so they can.
Yeah. So I'm trying to build up that for more of the hardcore bodybuilder crowd. There's a lot of
Right.
lifestyle and urban sort of fitness brands where they're very cutesy and light and everything like that, where mine's more a little bit darker, more hardcore, which is sort of the guys that I look up to, just the extremists of that.
Exactly.
So
well, let me ask you this question too. So when you're preparing though for an actual competition, I would imagine you're probably spending more hours in the gym per day, or is it still pretty much the same schedule?
It'll be about the same amount of time. Okay. My training, my actual weight training, will go from about an hour and a half to an hour 45 minutes down to about an hour, because that's all. Because at that point I'll be so depleted. That's all that my body will allow.
Right.
And even that hour is just can be miserable at times. And then I'll do about an hour, up to an hour of cardio on the Stairmaster or something like that. And then
I've heard even just practicing the poses is a workout. Just trying to figure that out.
Oh yeah,
is that correct?
Yeah. So when you pose, you are contracting every muscle in your body, because when you stand on stage, to make the muscles pop, you contract them. So it's like your biceps and stuff. If you go like this, they're going to pop only if you flex it really hard.
Right.
So if you think about standing on stage as a bodybuilder, you're just in a small little posing trunks, and so you have to flex all the way, they say, from the ground up. Start with your calves, your quads, your hamstrings, glutes, abs, chest, arms. Everything is tightened as much as possible.
Yeah.
And so to hold that is very, very difficult.
Oh yeah.
So you have to condition your body to be able to do that. And so if you think about lifting any sort of weight, well, usually you're just lifting one muscle group at a time,
right,
where you're flexing like your arm
right,
or your chest.
Yeah.
So to keep everything tense and to hold it there, it's hard to do it for 10 seconds.
Oh yeah.
And so
I can imagine.
there's a lot that goes into it, and people don't realize that until they really start getting into it. Like I said, I had no idea what I was getting myself into.
You're like, what am I doing?
I still ask myself that, but I love it so much.
Sure.
It's such a passion for me.
No, and again, like I said, for our listeners, when we post your picture, it's really is quite amazing what you have done, and obviously to hear where you were and where you are now, it's impressive.
Yeah.
I mean, and not just because you're in really good shape. I'm more impressed with the mindset.
Mm-hmm.
You went from, not thinking you're good enough and I'm always just going to be this criminal partying kid, to now you're like, no, I'm going to make a difference in this world. You did mention to me that you're going to start your own podcast here eventually.
Yeah.
What are some other things that you're doing for the future that you can let our listeners know about besides the podcast?
So the podcast itself will be the Mindful Meathead, to where I
like that.
It's more where you can go and you can see these YouTube videos and stuff like that where people talk about training, and it's very it can be very good, but I want to take a different approach and have it be very intellectual based, like stuff like this, where we can dive deeper into like
dig into it deep.
Yeah, because I think that's a big thing and a big, stigma that bodybuilders are just like these big dumb meatheads, and there's not a lot behind there, and they're
give me a weight.
Yeah, exactly. So I think naturally we look at this really big guy and we just have this sort of like this Hulk sort of caveman sort of way of looking at him naturally. I think that, and so I don't blame people for that, but with the mindful meathead, I want to go a little bit more philosophical, intellectual, just much deeper, hence that's where I came up with the name. And then
I like it.
And then as much as I can in using the competitive aspect of bodybuilding, competing in the NPC and hopefully one day the IFBB, to use that as a platform to help promote other things that I, eventually want to do. And then my coaching services to help other people, not just bodybuilders and not just, fitness competitors or anything like that. I mean, I work with like, everybody from competitors to, stay-at-home moms and stuff like that, to just want to get healthier, like just literally anybody, and help people, get on the right track towards they could be healthier and feel better about themselves, and heck, maybe they want to compete one day. Who knows? I didn't think I wanted to, but here I am.
Here you are.
And then
awesome.
As of right now, the apparel line, the Beast Lifestyle, where there's not a lot of the fitness brands that promote the more hardcore aspect, the really, really big guys. It's a lot of like the, big smiles and, girls' booties and stuff like that, which is it's all great and stuff. But I want to focus on, that core set of people who really, really like to train hard, who really like to like just have that same sort of extremist mentality with bodybuilding. And there's not a lot of that going on, because back over the last about 10, 20 years, open bodybuilding, the really big guys, has really died down, and they're getting back to more like they want more streamlined, like aesthetic looks, not the mass monsters, where I mean, I'm more of the fan of, as big and as shredded as possible while remaining, aesthetic. A lot of, if you go back in the 90s, that was like the golden era. They don't call that, they called like the 60s and 70s with Arnold the golden era, but for me, the 90s, it was like the perfect balance of everything.
Sure.
In that world. So that's just kind of my sort of mindset with what I want to do with Beast Lifestyle. And then I mean, just whatever I can do to help other people and inspire other people, and just for people to know, like, you can, whether it's bodybuilding or whether it's anything, I mean, you can do pretty much anything you set your mind to, as long as you are willing to pay that price.
Yeah, and I like how you point that out, because we can be anything, and I agree with that. But you couldn't even be more correct when you say, as long as you're willing to put in the work, you can have it if you'll put the work in.
And that's my biggest thing with people that come to me, for coaching or guidance, or say, "Oh, you inspire me." I'm like, man, you need to understand that if I can do this, it's anybody's game. For sure. It's just I'm willing to pay that price.
Right.
And are you? More times than likely, no, which is fine. It's not for everybody, but a lot of people want to, think that there is some sort of secret pill, or you can take this, or use these performance enhancing drugs, or there's some sort of magical sort of weight loss or muscle gaining diet, or you take this supplement. There's no shortcuts. And that, I think that's, like I said, the beauty of bodybuilding. It's perfect representation of life, I think, is that you're only going to do well if you're willing to go straight through the fire.
Right.
And if you're willing to put in the work, and the more you look for shortcuts, the more actually you're taking 3 steps back.
Exactly.
And you're working against yourself. And so that's why I tell,
that's a great point.
One of my slogan for Beast Lifestyle is hardcore nothing. Like that's my mentality with everything. And I think if you don't have to be that same way, but I think if you just make sure that whatever you do, you give it 100%. You empty yourself. You give everything you can to it. And you may not get exactly to where you were or where you want to be, but you can go further, or you might go a completely different path. But I think that you will be happy with yourself and where you're going, as long as you just put forth that extreme dedication.
Wow, very well said, Zach. Very well said. If you could give any advice for someone who's listening to this right now, who may be struggling with even drug addiction or criminal behavior, or they're just trying to find their purpose, and what advice would you give them?
It's a good question. I mean, just know that this is the only time that we have here. That you get one shot at life.
Right. Uh-huh.
I mean, I'm not religious or anything whatsoever. So once you're done, boom, game over. And
so take advantage of it.
if you want, trust me, at one point in your life, you're gonna wish that you had done things differently. And so do something that your future self will be thankful for.
Okay.
And just discipline yourself. Like, that's the ultimate thing. Like, don't waste any time, because I wasted a lot of my time, and so I'm trying to play catch up now, is how I'm feeling. And so that's why I have such extreme dedication towards everything that I want to do, because I felt like I wasted so much time. Don't waste any time, because one day it's going to be gone, and you don't get any other opportunity.
Great advice, Zach. Great advice. If people want to reach out to you and get to know you better, or learn more about you, what would be the best way for them to do that?
Social media is pretty good. Facebook or Instagram. Just Zack Prior. Instagram at Zack Prior, ZackPrior, and then you can find me on Facebook by just searching my name. I'm the guy with the profile picture. I'm a bodybuilder.
Yeah, it's can't miss it.
yeah, it's hard to miss.
Yeah.
So yeah, if anybody wants to reach out or anything, I'm more than happy to talk to literally anybody.
That's awesome. Well, I want to thank you for spending some time with me today and sharing your story with our listeners and with me. I feel so blessed that I get to sit in this seat and hear such amazing stories, and to see where you were and where you are now. It really is an inspiration, and I want to thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to sit with us today.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on, Todd. It's been great today, and I love the podcast. Been listening to it quite a bit lately.
Thank you, and I appreciate that. And listeners, there you go. Another amazing story. Another amazing person, Zack Prior. Please share this with anyone you know. And again, I can't thank you enough for your support. Again, I got to thank Veracity Networks for their sponsorship, and I'm just very blessed there. And I feel blessed. I sit here, I'm over here just inspired, going, man, I need to up my game here, and here. So thank you for inspiring me, and I'm sure those who listen to this are going to feel the same way. So
yeah, well, you inspired me too. So I mean, this is a great experience, and thank you again, Todd.
You bet. Thank you, and until next time, folks.
All right.
Thanks.